The mine blew sideways, immediately killing the 3 of them outside and injuring 15 more.
I saw them go down over there tomorrow, and also my mind what is happening.
What's your name?
My name is Zach Blank.
Where are you from?
I was born in New York and grew up in West Orange, New Jersey most of my life. I moved to Israel. This August will be 10 years. It's summer of 2014.
And did you move out here to join the IDF?
That was the big picture. I came here every summer growing up since I was 9 with my family. I went to Jewish day school. My entire life was very Zionistic and just getting to see and experience Israel a lot. In 6th grade, I chose I was going to move here and draft. Back then, my reasons weren't as mature maybe as they should have been, but over time, I got better reasons. I came in the summer of 2014, right after I graduated high school, and then went to a gap year for a year in an attempt to learn Hebrew, which didn't go so well, but I had a great time and kind of a good landing year, and then I drafted into Givati in the summer of 2015.
Well, okay, so right after Operation Protective Edge. I was actually here for that summer.
Yeah,
So
you moved here.
I'll taste.
Exactly. I moved here literally 2 weeks after the operation ended.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And where in the process did you say to yourself that doing the IDF was part of being an Israeli?
Yeah, so I think I always viewed it as one the same. I went to a school where I actually had a lot of friends who was also drafted. Our first friend who drafted into Tanchanim, the paratroopers, straight out of high school, right in the beginning to Operation Protective Edge. And he came and he served and moved back. And it was the first time it really dawned on me that they're even separate ideas. For me, living here and serving, to live here is to commit and to be fully part of society. It's why I wanted to learn Hebrew and try to embrace the culture, even before I drafted. But it's also why when I drafted, I asked and requested to go to Givati, where I knew I'd be the only American and really be able to meet Israelis and kind of learn a lot more of that culture and everything there.
And so 2015, you served officially until when?
I served until March 2017. I started off in a program called Mahal, which is volunteering for the army. I didn't have citizenship yet to Israel.
Okay.
And I was extending. I'd added on 3 months. I was meant to add on another 6. And I had torn my shoulder, my labrum, almost basically completely off a long time earlier in my service, and then hit it for a very long time. I got a quarterly shot while I was visiting my family in America in the middle of my service, and took a lot of Advil. And then when I was meant to go sign on more time, my company commander basically sat me down and told me, one day you'll understand that your health is also important, and you can't give everything right now, and you have to be around for the long haul. Go home, take care of yourself, got this taken care of. Got surgery, went through about 2 years of recovery, and got cleared to go back in end of 2019.
So you come back to Israel and you came back to serve?
So I stayed here the entire time.
Okay.
I mean, I got out of the army and I went on a small trip like we all do. I did a unique trip. I went to West Africa, and to America, and then got my shoulder taken care of here in Israel. Made Aliyah officially in the summer of 2017, a few months after I got released. And then I went here. I stayed here. I went to university, to IDC in Herzliya.
What did you study?
I studied finance and economics. I was there for 3 years. And my last year, I did a semester abroad in Portugal for 6 months. And that was like a couple of weeks before I flew is when I was cleared to try going back to reserves and to apply. So I said, okay, when I get back, I'll work on it. I got back 2 weeks before COVID started. So that wasn't even one of my thoughts for a while. And then over the following years, I tried getting back into reserves, but one of my best friends who I grew up with he's a deputy company commander in another unit, and a few of my friends from my degree actually served with him. So I was actually trying to go to his unit, and each year we were trying the paperwork and getting rejecting. It was actually a couple of weeks before the war started that his battalion commander said, okay, you know what, like, I'm on vacation, we'll deal with this, like, you've been pushing this long enough, we'll get you in. The war started, and obviously that was too chaotic, so I was able to actually be pulled back to my old unit, to my original squad, and join them down south for the war.
Interesting. And go back to Portugal for a second. While you were in Portugal, did you have any time while you were away outside of Israel, probably 6 months exchange, I would assume, that you said to yourself, wait, no, I really want to go back to the U.S.?
So I had, short answer is no. Like I had twice in my life where I gave myself the opportunity to ask that question. When I first got out of the Army, part of my trip, I went back to America for 2 months. All of my friends were in university at the time. Every weekend I was visiting them. I said, let's at least ask the question, could I enjoy college here? Would I want to be here? And very quickly realizing I was just in a different mindset. Like coming out of almost 2 years in the Army and being so much older than the incoming freshman I'd been joining with would be it wasn't even interesting to me. And I really missed Israel very quickly into my trip. In Portugal, I loved the experience of being there. And I loved getting to be the first Jew and the first Israelis a lot of my friends met. And even today, getting to see the impact of that and people who are very open to asking me questions and they're only seeing one side of the media, but they know they can text me and ask me and kind of try to get an understanding. But I never thought really about, would I not want to be here? If anything, it was realizing how clearly temporary that was and how much I wanted to start my real life once I got back here and start my career and start, moving forward in life.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about your career before October 7th. You as a civilian.
So I right now I work in sales. I lead sales for a small startup here in Israel. I started off my career in investment banking. Worked in M&A and capital raising for just under 2 years. Then moved into tech sales. First at an amazing fintech startup that IPO'd a few months after I joined. I was there for 2 years and then moved over to my current startup, and I've been leading sales for them for the past year and a half, including a lot of days away, obviously, in reserves.
Yeah, let's get there. So October 7th happens. Walk me through your October 7th. Where were you?
Yeah.
How did it unfold?
So October 6th. So I'm observant. I keep the holidays. I keep Shabbat. So October 6th, we're going next to Simchat Torah. Me and my roommates hosted a big party to start off the holiday going into that Shabbat. And we told ourselves we'll clean up in the morning. It'll be fine. 6:30, we had one friend staying over. 6:30 in the morning, first sirens go off. Didn't even hear them. Our friend who was sitting on our couch woke us up and said, I think there's a siren right now. And so we went to the staircase. And then after the siren, we're walking back up, and my roommate who served intelligence said, it for sure a mistake. Like, definitely, it happens all the time. It's not, like, uncommon that these things go off sometimes. But whatever. And we went back to sleep. About 9:30, I woke up to my neighbor, Ronnie, walking into my house, who had his phone on and was able to see what was going on. He took his dog over, and immediately, once he kind of explained what was going on, we all turned our phones on. Our friend who was staying with us was immediately called to reserves, and we were all kind of just trying to figure out what was going on. We had a lot of friends who were by themselves or in apartments that they didn't feel safe in. They all kind of moved in. They all stayed there for a week and a half. We called it Airbnb bunker. They're very creative. We had a fun time. As fun as you can, I guess. But because I never really got that paperwork fully finalized with my unit, I wasn't able to join them immediately on the 7th. I was calling everybody. I called one of the guys in my tzebet, in my squad, he's kind of the pseudo officer, kind of the highest up commander within the guys who I really was with. And he said he would talk to our company commander and see what happened. That was on Saturday night. Sunday morning, news broke that his brother had been killed on the 7th. So I didn't even want to bother him anymore out to him space. And in my head, I kind of forgot about them. I was reaching out to everybody possible to see where I could join and who I can get with. I had all the documentation clearing me. I just needed it to be organized. But there was such chaos in the beginning of war that no one needed that time to pull anyone. It was just, everyone was just trying to get their own people who were already there to get it.
And how did that make you feel? Like knowing you were ready to, cleared, you're ready to go, and it was basically bureaucracy that was holding you back.
I had my entire bag packed. Everything was literally sitting there waiting at the door. My boots, my vest, all of the clothes toiletries, everything I needed was fully ready to go. And it was eating me alive. I was calling people night and day, all just to try to get in somewhere. I could not handle it, especially knowing where my guys were. So my squad were responsible for the southern half of Gaza.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Your squad,
Yeah.
the unit you served in, what's the unit?
Yeah.
Specialized, non-specialized,
Sure.
unit.
So in active service, I served in Givati. Givati is an infantry brigade that's responsible for southern Israel, and in particular and specifically the Gaza border. Served on the Gaza border for 6.5 months in 2016. And that's really meant to be our focus. We know everything about it. We know where it all is, where every base is, where every landmark is. Everything that's there is our responsibility. In reserves, we serve in a unit that we split kind of Gaza in half, and there's a northern half and a southern half, and so I'm part of a unit that's responsible for the southern half of Gaza. 90% of the guys that I'm with are guys that also were in Givati throughout the years. You have a few guys who came from other units as well, but most of us came from Givati originally. When we specialize in southern Gaza, we were meant to know the whole border perfectly. We meant to understand what the threats are inside of southern Gaza. So on October 7th, they were actually the first infantry unit to be called. There's like a whole news article about at 9:20 in the morning. Our brigade commander called and said, "Bring all the officers. Let's get everyone here. Let's figure out what we're going to do, and then we'll make a decision." At 9:40, all of 20 minutes later, the second call comes, and it's recordings, and all the news is bring everyone. 9:40, they all made down. And knowing where they were and knowing what was going on, I was absolutely eating myself alive. My stomach hurt for all 9 or 10 days until I was allowed to join them.
Okay, so we're at October 7th, fast forward 9-10 days.
Yeah.
You get the call. Walk me through that.
Yeah.
What did you feel?
Yeah, so I got a text at 2 in the morning by our logistics officer, Shira Biton, saying, "You're approved. Come whenever you can tomorrow." I was like, "Shira, I think I need a little bit more than like a WhatsApp text. Like, give me some formal, like, I'm going to show up and nothing's going to be there for me. Call me when you can."
Kind of feeling like excited, but also nervous that this WhatsApp text wasn't sufficient to allow you to actually enter.
Exactly. I also didn't know what I was going into. Right? I wasn't really given any context. I said, come down whenever you can. Didn't even tell me where to go.
Sounds so Israeli.
Yeah. So she's great at her job, but I imagine she had a million things going on that day, especially in the beginning. And she called me and explained to me where to go, what the situation is, and also really calmed me down. I mean, you really don't know. All you know what you're walking into is what you see on Telegram, and that's definitely not a good sight to see. So my friend and my cousin drove me down the following Wednesday after the war began, so about a week and a half later. Got down and was immediately joined my unit in a kibbutz called Halit. Halit is a kibbutz that's really kind of on the border of Israel, Gaza, and Egypt, on the southern border. And they called me up on what they had been doing, and up until then. The first 4 days of the war, they were in a kibbutz called Kisufim, which is about kind of in the middle of Gaza. They were kind of very active and part of the fighting there, and a big part of what they had to do at the end of those 4 days, when things started to calm down a little bit more, was they were responsible for removing a lot of the bodies. So really going in, picking up and taking bodies out, and loading bodies onto trucks. And there were a lot of sneakers and shoes that were thrown out because they were covered in vomit by the time I got to my guys. In Halit, this was all still right before Israel even entered Gaza. So a lot of things still come up in there. There was a lot of craziness, and we really know we were running on adrenaline. We were still very much and what our minds was the peak of the war. There was still suspicion of terrorists in the field. There was rockets firing all the time. There were hundreds of drones coming every single night. One drone that fired at us, many others that we don't really know what to do with, but we're hearing the stories of our friends who drones are dropping grenades and people are getting injured and this, and just terrifying. Every night was terrifying. Every day you don't know who's in the field and coming out. We spent our days continuously clearing houses, because you don't know you have to clear a house, but then a couple of days later maybe you have to clear it again.
And this is within Israel.
It is all within Israel, yeah. And then around the whole kibbutz, like we're searching, they have a lot of avocado fields down there, and so we have to go and search through the fields. So we actually, while we were searching, we were able to find a few terrorists who were incredibly instrumental in helping us gain more information, knowing where others were hiding.
So I want to ask you, though, pause you for a second. You find these terrorists.
Yeah.
What does that look like? You take them into custody.
Yeah.
What happens with them?
So, my second day with my unit, we searched an avocado field. Other times we find gear, we find bodies, we also don't know if the bodies are terrorists or Israelis. Inside the kibbutz, we're finding bodies and body parts and a lot there, but we can dive into that. We kind of searched the field and we found, right, this is already just under 2 weeks into the war. And we knew that there were some people who crossed the border prepared to be in Israel for a while, waiting potentially for another attack. We didn't really know what the plan was. We had no clue what was going on. But other people who kind of just got stuck, right? At a certain point, Israel and Hamas were fighting, and we were really able to seal the border. People were stuck hiding. This guy we found was basically spotted. He was shriveled up, hiding under an avocado tree, bush, whatever it's called. And he'd been living off of avocados for 11, 12 days. He still looked like he had nothing on him, really.
Young guy, old guy?
Fairly young guy, like probably about my age. Just like no energy to it. So very quickly and thankfully it's detained. No one reacted. No one was jumpy, and we were able to detain him. And from him, we were able to learn that there were 2 other terrorists who were hiding in the area who were caught the next day by other units within my battalion.
And what was the emotion? So there's all this that's unfolded for a week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anger because everybody in Israel was affected by what's going on. Everybody knows somebody or is related to somebody. The feeling of actually finding a terrorist who's alive. What's the emotion that was felt by the squad? Is it anger? Is it rage? Is it happy?
Yeah, I don't think, I won't talk about the other. I have no idea what's going through other people's heads, especially in those times. Like, we were guarding or sleeping, barely sleeping, but like we didn't really communicate so much. But for myself, I mean, it was the same as when I was in Gaza. Like, you have a job here, and you're laser focused on that. Like, I know that people back home at that time, right, 2 weeks into war, were starting to ask the questions of who caused this, and he made the mistake, and how did October 7th happen, and this and that. And for myself, that thought didn't even cross my mind until like a month and a half into the war, because we were able to calm down a little bit more. Until then, you really you have a very clear job to do, and you're running 100% of the time. Right? You're guarding. When we're on guard duty, you're guarding 4 hours on, if you were lucky, you got 8 hours off. But like, I had full nights where I guarded 11 of the 12 hours of that night, and then I was expected to go straight on to my next shift because we just needed so many people doing so many things all the time, that you're just running on adrenaline and on all of the training that we've had until that point, right? And that's all you're just drilling yourself on that and just running with it. So there wasn't many emotions that were being felt. Like, I think it was very much just a very professional focus, if anything.
And you said like you were walking through these, or searching through these, with the sweeping, and you find bodies, find all kinds of things that are unimaginable. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I got to the kibbutz, Zaka had already done a really great job in removing a lot of the bodies. They were still removing basically apparently in bags of body parts. But the blood was still everywhere. And there were dead animals everywhere. Huli, as an example, they have a wild turkey farm. And the guy who runs the farm on October 7th, his fear was they were all going to get killed, so he just released the pen. And there were thousands of wild turkey everywhere, but no one's feeding them. They're in the middle of a war zone. People, obviously, 2 of them are getting shot during the beginning of fighting. And the smell is something I will never forget for the rest of my life. And then we also, as kind of things start to progress, you also had a few kibbutznikim coming back to take things from their houses. We try to collect things, and it was a very organized process, and you need a soldier with them to guard them, make sure they were okay. But it means you're also going into their homes. You're seeing for the first time. You're seeing and they're seeing for the first time what happened, right? So some of them you're a little bit more prepared for, and they came and said, I just need to grab my car keys. And we're trying to explain to them, like, damn, there's no car in. Like, the car is a pile of ashes somewhere, like, thrown to the side. Where other times we walk into houses and there's, blood on the child's wall and broken mirrors and grenade, fragments all over the walls and ceilings. And, it's really crazy. You really have to try to be the strong one in the situation and you're the one protecting the civilian. What you saw down south, even now, but in the beginning, when you really didn't know what you were going to uncover, right? And to finding like Hamas gear still just like randomly in houses that a terrorist just left behind, or we don't know what happened, to blood splattered everywhere, to bags of body parts still being collected, and the end, like helping the organizations coming to clear the dead animals and also move out the live animals so they could actually be taken care of. And like every day was different groups and people coming in, and you have obviously, along with all that, the intelligence units coming in, and Mossad and Shabak and whoever else is coming down south to kind of get their understanding of the area. At a certain point, you try to convince yourself that you're just used to it. You're walking past completely burnt houses, or a house that you see the bomb shelter door was shot through with an RPG, and you're just like, you don't even notice it. It just kind of becomes background. And that's kind of terrifying. It's over, right? Like becoming used to living in the middle of a massacre was a terrifying realization.
And so you create this sterile zone.
Yeah.
You're at, I would say, in or around October 20th now. Been there for some time. What point after the environment is sterile are you now prepping to go in? Because for us as civilians who are here in other places in Israel that were sterile from day one, all we were seeing is ground invasion, delayed ground invasion. What was happening with you from the time the zone was sterile to the time that you were about to enter Gaza?
Sure. So I mentioned, we're responsible for southern Gaza. So in the beginning, we never thought that we ourselves would ever be going into Gaza. We were waiting for the north for what happens, because every operation that we've ever had in Gaza since Israel left in 2005 has always been in northern Gaza and has never reached even the halfway mark of the map of the land. But we knew that our job was really being, securing keeping the kibbutzim and the yeshuvim safe and guarding the border itself, and kind of holding that line to make sure that nothing spilled back out into Israel, right? And there wasn't kind of a pressure pot there. And that's what we understood what our job would be. We were asking the same questions though, like every night we're getting rockets and drones flying at us, and we know that once Israel enters, they can't be firing that many at us. Like the focus has to shift. They're being attacked inside of Gaza at this point. And every night, just prepare yourself mentally. Like, if I can get through that 12 to 4 a.m. shift and kind of keep myself calm and work through it, then the rest of the guard duties we had, it's hours, you're tired, push through. But if I can get through that middle of the night where you don't know what's around you, you can't see, you have everything flying above your head, there's no real understanding of if it's ours or if it's not and what's going on, we're just waiting for those nights to be over.
When did you go into Gaza?
So we went into Gaza. I went to Gaza the first time beginning of January. I went for 1 day as kind of a beginning point. It was really after we'd already entered the IDF Khan Yunis, which was really the starting point of the IDF really entering the southern half of Gaza. Where at that point we were on a kibbutz called Niroz. Niroz is one of the three main kibbutzim that was really attacked and hit during the war. I think 30 or 40% of the population was killed or kidnapped. 80% of the infrastructure burnt. But right across from Khan Yunis, less than a kilometer from the border. So we were quite literally watching the action in front of our eyes, asking ourselves, when are we getting in? When are we getting in? Waiting for the call at that point. Know that we should be called.
You went from October, let's say 20th in the sterile zone covering the border to January.
Yeah.
Are you down south the whole time? Did you come back to normal life
So
to an extent?
So I was down south the entire time. We total did 152 days of reserves. We were released in the middle of March. The rest of that time we kind of hopped around. We were responsible for guarding and clearing a few other kibbutz in the area, Nirim, Einash Shlosha, Magen, and Niroz, a few others.
Yeah. So you go in January.
So we go in January at first.
Walk me through even that first day.
Yeah.
What are you feeling as you're literally crossing the border, knowing that you're going into a war zone?
Yeah, so the first time there was a small group of us that was attached to an elite unit that was going to do their own mission. We were responsible for their convoy. I mean, basically, we were responsible for securing and being the ones guarding the convoy going in and coming out. And then also, if God forbid they were attacked while inside, we were their rescue team, and we would be able to take the injured soldier out. So the small group of us, we drove in jeeps, and I was pretty terrified. Thankfully, my buddy who I was going with, everyone else kind of we work in the buddy system. He'd already been in during Operation Protective Edge 2014. He told me, and he said, once you cross over the border, you'll know, you'll see it. But then you'll calm down. Give yourself 20 seconds, and you'll be like, okay, now we just do our job. And that's really what happened. I was really, really nervous all the time. We crossed the border. And I was like, wow, this is I'm officially in Gaza. This is it. We went in that day. That day worked out really well. It was very, very calm. Thankfully, we came out, and that was our kind of beginning for our battalion commander, our brigade commander, to start preparing and proving that we can start taking on bigger missions, bigger assignments.
Is that how the army works in these kind of situations where you're not usually going to be inside of Gaza, taking on bigger tasks? You go in, you kind of prove yourself as a squad.
A little bit. So each unit has a role and has a responsibility. Either they're a defensive unit or they're offensive or more operational unit, I would say. Let's say they're more of a logistical unit, whatever it is. So my unit was, for a long time, considered to be a defensive unit. And my brigade commander was pushing more and more to be able to bring ourselves to the rank of being able to be viewed and operate more in an operational way and gain more capacity.
Is there any political motive for that?
Not at all. Nazi, rest in peace, Nazi believed that we have an opportunity to serve our country, and that not everyone gets that opportunity, and that we're going to do it to the best of our ability. And that means accepting every task asked of us as a unit, and accepting every task not asked of us and volunteering for them, and just continuously proving ourselves to take on more and more responsibility. And that every unit has a responsibility to take on as much as they possibly can, and then some. And that was his drive. That was how he led us, and he eventually was able to lead us to be, not just approved, but we basically were told that we have battalion commanders requesting our units to be coming and working with them again in the future, and we led missions with battalions that we weren't a part of, because they saw the way that we worked and our ethic and our commitment, and we all really took that message very seriously. Not everyone gets to defend their country.
And so you're in for a day, you come out. Was there a period of time that you spent more than a day in Gaza?
Yeah. So
walk me through that.
Sure.
A little bit about it.
Yeah. So after I went in for the day, they got approved, and while a third of my unit, not myself, went in for a week to an area just north of Khan Yunis, and their job was clearing the area, searching for tunnels, did a lot of really amazing, great work, but still kind of a safer area. IDF had already been there, and then from there we got acceptance, taking on more responsibility. A battalion was what had released a brigade to go home. They were looking for a new brigade to join them. Nazi was the first one to jump and say, we'll do it, and pushed very hard and got a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paper signed. for us to be allowed to go, and we went into southern Khan Yunis.
For how long?
Went in for 16 days. And essentially what our job was in Khan Yunis, right? So we march in, we IDF kind of pushed in Khan Yunis, and at a certain point, created the line in eastern Khan Yunis and kept pushing along the coast on western Khan Yunis so that we're able to be where we are today, right? And kind of be on the outskirts of Rafah and be ready for if there's an operation that we need there to take on. Our job we were the southernmost point in eastern Khan Yunis and really holding that line, basically facing uncharted territory, not knowing what's there. The IDF has not stepped foot in that area since we left in 2005. And our job was to secure that line and make sure that logistics would always be safe and everything could run smoothly on that side.
And I'm sure in those 16 days, it probably felt like 16 days underwater.
Yeah.
Tell me, give me an experience that you had that you'll never forget. What did you find? Did you find tunnels? Did you find hostages? Did you find civilians?
Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, sure. So our last, it was about 4 days before we were released. Most of our missions had been pretty big assignments, but all within 1.2 kilometers from the logistics road, north or south. We kind of attacking specific things or taking over, clearing certain areas for different reasons. There is a town, Abisanya or something like that. I'm terrible with all the names and all that. I know where it is on a map. That's in eastern Khan Yunis. So it's a lot deeper in than where we'd ever been before. That from there, we knew that unit of Hamas was the unit that attacked and kidnapped people from the Eurozone area. And we knew that they were using the mosque, this massive mosque. It looked straight out of the Aladdin movie. And they were using it as a major transportation site and had major logistical tunnels running underneath it. So they sent us in and went on a mission to basically take over the town and to blow up the mosque. If you think about the town, it's kind of like very, very easy and clear layout. You have a giant mosque in the middle, and then two main roads crossing right through it. And so you imagine 4 sections. Our job was we were kind of coming in as 3 companies. My company was meant to kind of come into the town and take over the southeast section, so facing the south side where we didn't know right what that terrain was. It was potentially outside of town. Another company would come and take the northeast section.
When you say company, you mean like platoon?
So a company is, you have a platoon is usually about 30 guys. A company is usually about 100. So not everyone is there. Mm-hmm. For our purposes in this one, our company was the size of the platoon. So we had about 30 guys per company on this mission.
Really?
I think we were, from my squad, so it's half of that. So you were about 15 people with us, 15 people in the other platoon, and the 2 of us made up our company, and each company was kind of structured in a very similar way. So the 30 of us were meant to take over this area, and kind of group in 2 groups of 2, and then 2 groups of 15, and then another one would take over the northeast, and then the third would kind of come through that northeast, take over the mosque. The explosives unit would come in, set everything up, we'd clear the area. Everyone steps out, we blow it up, we destroy the tunnels and everything underneath, and we get on with our day. Before we even got into the town, we basically had to kind of do this zigzag through these fields to be able to get there. And before we made our first zig, probably at 800 meters from the town, the company in front of us saw a soldier had been injured from an RPG. Thankfully, it was an indirect hit. He's okay today. He had been hit, and very quickly we kind of realized we were being attacked, and they were fighting back before we even entered town. A few moments after that, our brigade commander's radio man had 2 bullets put in his leg, and he was taken out of the field along with his radio, which was damaged in the process. So now we have a brigade commander without a radio man, 2 people injured, and we're being attacked outside the town. The terrorists who had fire at the time were already at that point taken care of. The tanks unit and the company in front of us were able to fight back and kill those terrorists and take on the building that they were fighting from. At that point, our company commander decided we have to get into the town, and from this point, we'll kind of figure things out. But we need to push. We can't just be out here, right, sitting ducks. We need to start making offensive decisions. So we pushed. I'm in the lead squad of my unit, so there's a group of 4 of us. It's my platoon officer, right, so the one in charge of the smaller group of us. Me, him, and both of our buddies, and the group of 4. The 4 of us and my company commander and his group of 4 went and we took over the first house. We took over the first floor, and as we took over the first floor, the rest of our unit came, so the rest of the 30 guys joined us. Thankfully, we were on the first floor. Our company commander's like looking around, and he's figuring out that we took over the wrong house, and we were actually going to take over one house south of where we were, and that's where we went to start our operation. Thankfully, he noticed it soon enough. Later on, the whole second floor of this house was rigged and set to blow.
And how did you learn that?
Tanks have really cool technologies. They were able to identify some things. I don't really have so many questions. When people tell me there's explosive places, I trust.
Fair enough.
But we understood the tanks were able to tell us that that house is set to blow. So we were very lucky that we had moved out in time. We took over a second house by a pure miracle. That house was completely fine and clear. There's nothing in it. And then the way we work with platoons is we kind of work in a hopscotch that way, right? So we took over the house. The second group of 15 was going to go take it over the next house. So when they went over to take over the second house, they made it to the second floor, and they saw their lead unit, who's good friends of mine, saw basically imagine a whole circle of black duffel bags. He put 2 bullets into one of the bags, and gas immediately started coming out of the bag. They cleared the house, and the D9, basically an indestructible tractor, came and bulldozed the house. And they saw there was one mine underneath the house with a lot of gas canisters all lined up and stacked in the house, basically to create the explosion. And that's when we realized now, 2 of the 3 houses that we're in were rigged. We've already been, in fact, outside. This unit of Hamas, this is their last stand. They decided, and they always know when we're coming. That's not hard. We're pretty loud. They come in hundreds. But they decide this is their hold. They've been waiting for this. They're going to give it their all. So we were kind of holding our house, and the D9 had kind of built a outdoor sand dune for the second platoon of ours. So we were kind of holding. And while we were there, before we were able to hopscotch, because now we had to figure out what to do with the rest of our area we were going to take over, the other company started taking over the northeast side. They took over the first house, fine. Second house, clear. Our brigade commander was leading that unit. When I took over the second unit house, it was a bit of a logistical error. Or not an error. It was a logistical challenge. A lot of things kind of got damaged in the middle of fighting, and something got damaged. They had to figure out a new path of how to move. So the brigade commander, as well as with the officer of that unit and his radio man, stepped outside of the building of the house to kind of evaluate and understand the situation, and from there decide on a new path for where we should go and where they should go and how we should progress forwards. While they were outside, a mine blew up in that house. Thankfully, which is crazy to this day, the terrorist who blew up the set of the mine, I don't think, what I say is he wasn't very good at his job, and he set the mine off sideways. What we discovered afterwards is there was basically a huge infrastructure tunnel underneath that house. The terrorist clearly was in the house. He saw us coming. He went to the tunnel, ran, and then once he knew they were in, he pulled or pressed or whatever it did to detonate the mine. The mine blew sideways, immediately killing the 3 of them outside, and injuring 15 more.
This is Nazi.
Nazi and 2 others were killed essentially on impact. 15 others were severely injured. One was launched from the second floor. Others, and then literally parts of buildings crumbling on them and the explosion around. 5 others were thankfully on the other side of the house, that because it grew sideways, they were totally okay. Physically.
Where are you relative to the mosque?
Yeah, so relative to the mosque, we had still another 300, 400 meters to go. We were still very much in the beginning of the town. But relative to them, I was about 70 meters from them. It was 2 buildings over, 2 buildings north of where we were, basically.
Was this your oh shit moment, I'm in Gaza and my life is on the line?
So those happened a lot. This happened to be towards the end of our time in Gaza, so I had definitely my oh shit moments before. Plenty of oh shit moments before. We had other missions where things went awry. Thankfully, no one was killed, but where just going on in the mission or understanding what's going on around you, you recognize like this is fucking real, right? Like this isn't a joke. There are people out here who are actively trying to kill you. They recognize they're in a losing battle too, right? They recognize that once they shoot, wherever they are is getting attacked with way more force than what they have in that house or building or tunnel, wherever it is. And so if they're coming at you, they're aware that they're risking their life for it, and they're okay with that, right? And so we had enough moments where we're in missions where we're understanding. You hear the sound of the clutch of the gun that most of Hamas uses, and it's a very distinct sound. And you're searching for them, scanning. We know that they're there in the area. Intelligence is always providing more information. And we know that people are...
How are they communicating that information to you when you're there in real time?
Yeah, so I mean, thankfully our officers are incredible at their jobs. My company commander is a partner at one of the largest law firms in Israel and knows how to communicate very well. Bring that down, spread that down through the chain. But it makes its way down the chain of command that we're told information as quickly as possible and as precisely and clear as possible. Our commanders are quite really trained in how to share information, not just that they need to, but what's an organized process for sharing the most amount of information in the smooth and quick way as possible. It works as a team, right? They say something, we repeat back, make sure we all know what's going on. I had other Americans with me who Hebrew was not as good as mine necessarily, so making sure they understood everything that was going on. So that's kind of all happening. But we had a lot of ocean moments. This was the first one where, like this day with Nazi was the first day where we realized, even beforehand, where we weren't going into a mission knowing that there's a threat or a risk that Hamas is there, that there's a mine there, that there is a sniper or an RPG waiting for us. This is the first time we were going in somewhere, knowing that fact that we were walking into a place with 20 to 50 terrorists waiting, knowing that we were coming and they were preparing for us. And we knew we were walking into active combat. So that was a day that was definitely different off the bat than any of the others, even before, shit hit the fan, everything became chaotic.
And when his mind goes off sideways, and unfortunately there's no casualty on our side, and 15 of our men injured, what happens for the live mission?
Yeah, so in the moment, we don't know, right? In the moment, our officers are trying to communicate and understand, what to do and how to decide. We were really...
Proceed with the mission?
So we ended up proceeding. Essentially what happened is the battalion commander, so the commander was in charge of the 5,000 of us there. Our brigade commander was in charge of about 600 of us. Essentially told the deputy brigade commander, he said, listen, we'll come in, we'll send in another unit, we're going to replace you guys one for one, come back out, be part of the perimeter, settle yourselves, gather yourselves.
So you never made it to the mosque on that day?
Nope. Our deputy, opposite. Our deputy commander said no, this is not his mission. We're going to start it, we're going to finish it. Let alone the increased risk that we would have in trying to bring in other people and swapping them. And we've right now been here, and it's not worth risking other people in that situation. But this is what we signed up for. And Nazi always said, we take on everything, we do our best, and then a little bit more. And this is our little bit more. And when we finish this, we'll figure out what we're going to do. But today we're going to do this. Thankfully, the battalion commander respected that response and allowed us to proceed. We proceeded in a little bit of a different way. Essentially, what we did is instead of taking over the area, we really kind of became on a preventative fire mission. And so our job was to make sure that nothing was going to attack us from inside the town from the southeast side, or that no one was going to come from outside the town, that they were waiting for us outside, which is much more difficult because usually we can go and clear the houses and we know no one's there and then continue to push that border. Now we're stuck where we are and we're really kind of clearing houses. We set up a sniper stand. We had me as a lead sharpshooter unit being pulled left, right, and center to search this building and search this building. And basically anywhere that the sniper stands couldn't be viewing, I was getting pulled to and searching. Over the next 10 hours, I think for 5-minute breaks here and there, I was able to take my eye out of my scope, but searching relentlessly and giving preventative fire and making sure that, they had just making sure that no enemy would want to pop their head out, but in a maintained and controlled way, right?
How long do you stay in this kind of formation in this specific spot?
We're probably there for 8 or 10 hours.
And then you exited?
And then, so we eventually continued to do that. Our deputy brigade commander was able to lead the 3rd unit, take over the mosque, and explosives were able to come in, and we were able to fulfill the mission, the core part of the mission. We were able to clear out of the town. When we were about 1 kilometer out of the town, our company commander stopped us and explained to us what happened. We all had a pretty strong idea already. We put together the 5 soldiers who were uninjured, who were brought to our house because we knew it was a clear house already, and stayed with us, and we were basically protecting them. They weren't able to, they were traumatized. So we put some pieces together already, but he explained to us really what, kind of confirmed our beliefs. And then when we got back to our fort, our new brigade commander...
This is still inside Gaza?
Inside Gaza.
Just outside of the town that you were in?
Yeah, we went back to, we were staying, we kind of had our fort, our stronghold, that was kind of along the logistics border. It was a couple of buildings that we were staying in. So we got back there, and then there is where they kind of debriefed, and we said, but just like every other mission, regardless of the impact, if anything, even more so on this one, when we leave to missions, there's naturally less people guarding the forts. And when we get back, we're still at war, and we're in the middle of a war zone. We are right back at it. So if we had 2 or 3 people guarding, a post when we were away, we were back at having 6 people immediately. You go back and you are drenched in sweat, you're starving, you're thirsty, and your job is just, someone has to just go up and swap the people and, raise our numbers in the post and hope that other people will make you a sandwich and bring you coffee whenever it is. So that night we said, no matter what, nothing else goes wrong tonight. Like no other night, we're going to be 115% on our game. And I was the first one to go and swap out my friend who was guarding the post. Another friend of mine brought me coffee and some Bisley. And for the next 24 hours, essentially all guarded, basically in silence.
And at this time, you're still laser focused. You didn't have time, I can imagine, to digest the fact that you unfortunately lost.
Yeah, none of us got to go to the funerals. None of us were able to reach out to his family or to the other families. We were able to kind of periodically get updates on the injured soldiers just because they understood how important it was for us to know what was going on. But even with them, really not be able to be told much. We were all able to, they basically, we don't typically text families and tell families that they know what happened because you want to be able to tell the army has to update and tell the actual members of the fallen beforehand. Our company commander allowed us, once that was done, because he knew that the news was going to break, and brigade commander is killed, of course, and anytime any of the soldiers are killed, but that one's going to be the front page across every newspaper, and it was, that we could text our families quickly and just say, I'm okay, and just leave it at that. So we kind of had one phone that was brought in, passed around to everybody, and then set that down.
Ask you, I can't imagine you had your phone or Instagram or anything going on, but your family back home.
Yeah.
Your family's in America. They're dealing with the trauma of having a son, a brother, a cousin, an uncle in Gaza. Did you think about them at any point while you're going through this, or was it shut off mode? I'm laser focused.
No, they're the only thing I think about. when I'm laser focused, I'm not thinking about anything. I am zoned in. This is all that matters. All I'm doing is thinking about all the training I have for how to be the best lead sharpshooter of my unit, what I'm scanning for, how to make sure everyone else in my unit is safe. All of that downtime is spent thinking about them. In my vest, since I was in active service and now, it's a few updated pictures, but I have a Ziploc bag with a tiny Israeli flag, and a few photos of my family, and shoved right into where my magazines are. And that's always there with me. They're all I think about while I'm there. They're the reason why I do it. The reason why I go and serve is to protect this country, but most importantly, it's to protect my family. And the fact that I have some family here, my older brother, my sister-in-law, my nephew, who was born a month and a half before the war started, and this is all he'll know for his infanthood. And the rest of my family living abroad, I fight and protect so that they are able to be safe. They're my 100% of my drive for why I do what I do.
Walk me through this release.
Yeah.
And then now coming back, I say coming back, you're probably mentally always checked in,
Yeah.
but coming back and taking off the uniform.
Yeah. So after that happened, we still weren't exactly sure what day we were actually leaving Gaza. We were pretty confident, but we weren't positive. And all the more so after that, we weren't sure what was going to go on. We didn't know who was really, we knew who was the interim commanders, but nothing had been finalized, formalized. Eventually, we were told we were leaving 4 days later. We marched in, but we were taken on trucks out. Most amazing truck ride of my entire life, being smushed in the back with 40 other guys and breaking your legs. But everyone's passing out cigarettes and everyone's throwing snacks, and there's just joy to know that we've done our job and that we know we're coming back, but knowing that we're done. Once we came out of Gaza, the next morning we were released from terrorists. We returned all of our stuff, went through all the logistics and everything, and went home. And that was incredibly difficult. Not giving my stuff back, that's only celebratory or excited. It was 152 days since we were in civilization, and we would all ships had to go back. I had 1 week here before I was allowed to fly and to go and visit my family. And
Well, what was that first night sleeping in your bed like? Taking a shower in your shower?
yeah, the first day was great. And I really felt like, I was just happy. I got home, I showered, I went to the coffee shop, I think I showered and slept for a while. My parents basically sent my roommates to go buy a huge sushi platter and some alcohol. We had a bunch of friends over for before Shabbat started, and immediately was overwhelmed, and realized I wasn't so mentally ready to just jump 100% right back into normal civilization. The rest of that week was surprising. It's crazy to say because I had just gone out of 2.5 weeks inside of Gaza, but it was, I think, the hardest week of my life. I walked around Tel Aviv scanning every window. Every time someone jogged past me, getting jumpy. Barely slept at night. And Gaza had really become my norm. And it was really, really big struggle to focus and to pay attention to people without looking at all the surroundings and knowing what's going on. I would try talking with my boss and staring out the window at the office building and across the street because people are moving on the balcony there.
How quickly did you return to work?
So I went back to work 3 weeks after I came back. I just went to visit for a day when I got out that week, and then I flew to America for 2 weeks to visit my family.
Your family must have been ecstatic to see it.
Yeah. My sister, at the time very pregnant sister, came sprinting through the airport to hug me, crying her eyes out. She had been being pregnant throughout the entire war, and she's my best friend. So we both had a really hard time with being in the army, and she definitely tried her best. But pregnancy hormones plus being my best friend definitely made it a challenge. She actually eventually had a beautiful girl who she named after me. Her Hebrew name is Aliyah. Messiah in Hebrew means God's miracle. And it's meant to be that it's God's miracle, God's way that I was able to come out of Gaza safe and sound. But obviously not everyone's as lucky for their relatives and siblings to be able to come out. So she's already my favorite.
So you're in America. It must have been obviously amazing with the down, as you were saying. Coming back to Israel, what was that like?
Yeah.
Leaving your family again.
Yeah. It's always hard to leave my family. I think every time I'm in America, it's easier and easier to leave the place and harder to leave my family. Obviously now all the more so. But if anything, I really understood why I was back. We had still work to do. Even when we were released, we were already told that we were getting called back in the summer. I'd go back in a few weeks. And we're still at work. There's work to be done. My unit and our job is not done. Until that's the case.
What is that mission, holistically?
Our mission is to serve whatever our part is in
What is that?
securing Israel. Securing Israel and assisting in whatever way possible in the bigger goals of this war of rescuing the hostages and making sure that another October 7th can never happen again. The IDF carries a phrase, especially infantry, you believe. In Hebrew, we call it Sedek Ma'alaset. You're a link in the chain. And every link matters. So wherever our part is, that's what they decided they need us back in Gaza to work. If they need us working in a mailroom and filing paperwork. And that's what they're deciding that's important for us. We're going to do that to the best of our ability.
No, so now you're back in regular life.
Yeah.
You're going to, I understand you're going back to million reserves. You're going to be stationed elsewhere. You're not going to be in southern Gaza.
Correct.
You're going to the West Bank.
Yeah.
What are you anticipating when you go into the West Bank?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I don't know exactly. I do know that the West Bank's very heated environment right now. It's very complicated environment because you have civilians walking around and, it's not just you and the enemy. There is a lot of other people who are there. But we're expecting ourselves to be busy. Whatever that entails is a bit unclear to us still. We'll find out.
And I want to just hop back 2 steps. While you were in America, and I know you visited for Face Off.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're a man in the 21st century who has a phone and sees social media. How does it make you feel seeing the narrative that's been pushed in the Western world, I guess all over the world for that matter, about Israel, when you know for a fact, you've been on the ground, you know for a fact the truth?
I don't think disheartening even does it justice. I think that a lot of it I see and I say, okay, it's misguided. It's college kids who want to have an opinion, and we've been taught our whole lives in Western world that you have to stand for the underdog. Unfortunately, there's very little research into really understanding who the underdog is in a situation, and you can kind of just see it at face value of Israel versus Hamas and not Israel against the Arab world and Iran and the whole bigger play here. So some of them I can kind of discard. Others is really hard to see. When I grew up playing soccer my entire life, I have non-Jewish friends and Muslim friends who, one friend who told me he doesn't really see a point in us talking about it. When I asked him I told him we really love to, and let's at least explore, talk together, and not try and convince each other either side. And at least we get dialogue and saying, I don't really feel like talking to someone who supports genocide. Another person who I was good friends with in my semester abroad who, when she told me that she follows the people on the ground, and that's where she gets her information from, and I said, well, I was also on the ground. Her immediate question to me was if I was on the ground killing and murdering innocent children. And that's tough. That's tough to hear and to see and to... October 7th was the first time I remember on October 7th talking with my friends and everyone who kind of came bunkering my apartment saying, this is the first time where Israel for sure walks out with all the world's support, right? How do you possibly stand and look at what's happening and say, anything else. And then immediately, so quickly, did the denial come out, and the people saying that it didn't happen and that there weren't murdered babies and the women weren't raped, and all the people who have been fighting for all those same rights around the rest of the world claiming none of this is real. And then switching again and saying that, that they don't want Israel to enter Gaza because then they'll occupy Gaza. And then on the second half of the sentence saying Israel occupies Gaza. We can't do both. The whole narrative on the other side is constantly contradicting itself. And that's the part where it's really frustrating, because you see it's just pure hatred. You can't call me an apartheid state and say that you're afraid of Gaza, of us taking over Gaza because we'll create an apartheid state. You can't say that October 7th didn't happen and then say that you support the resistance that happened on October 7th. You gotta at least have a narrative that makes sense. And seeing that it doesn't even make sense, that the argument on the other side isn't something that I strongly disagree with, but you have a coherent thought, and that it's every other person you'll talk to will contradict themselves, will contradict the next person. You see, it's just hatred, and that's really hard to see, and it all the more so shows, like, this is why I live in Israel. This is why I defend Israel and fight. I served in the military, because clearly the rest of the world is not going to step up and do it.
So what's your message to every non-Jew in the Western world?
I think we all would agree, if we take ourselves out of this specific conflict, that our own social medias are biased. We get the shoe ads that we believe we just talked about those shoes. We get the political ads that we get because they know, all of our social media knows what political side we're on. And in this topic, I think people are saying, no, I see it on social media or I see it in the news, this must be true. I think the message has to be that you have to be willing to talk to both sides, at least understand. And then ask yourself really what you're supporting, right? Are you supporting something that the easiest way I say is, are you supporting something that if Israel didn't exist, would you support them, or would you be advocating and protesting against them? Would you be protesting against organization that murders gay people, that rapes women, that enslaves Africans, all the things that we know are happening in Gaza and that we've seen. Video footage has been proven around the world that, you have, or we possibly supporting these things in the rest of our, these are not any of our values. Mm-hmm. And so decide what values you actually support. Decide if you support the only democracy in the Middle East. Decide if you support the country with the second, with the city with the second most gays in the world and has gay parades in both capitals. Decide if you're supporting a country that is literally handing out pamphlets and has reduced the militant to civilian death ratio to the lowest in modern warfare history. Mm-hmm. Or if you're supporting a state simply because they're the underdog, right? And if we're just supporting things because we're the underdog, then we're creating rules that aren't acceptable for ourselves. When one side is allowed to be right 100% of the time because they're weaker, we know that we've made a mistake in our judgment.
Compromises to American values.
100%. We should really be looking at what our real values are and not having a blanket rule that whoever is weaker in any given fight is the one who's wrong, mm-hmm. is the one who's right.
Mm-hmm. And what's your message to the Jewish diaspora community?
It's what I struggle with. Because when I try to think about what to tell my family all the time, first and foremost is safety matters more than anything else. And if you're not safe right now, the state of Israel will welcome you with open arms. But if you're not ready to move here, you don't want to live here, and you have your life somewhere else, and a lot of people really are, pretty situated where they are, then find a safe place where that is, and make sure that you feel safe, that you're in a community that protects you. Do whatever you need to protect yourself. And don't buy into the social media, because I personally don't believe that as many people hate us as what social media makes it out to be. I think there's a lot of people who I meet through my work now and through other platforms that really, really support Israel and are be incredibly supportive of the work that I do and the state, all the values that the state believes in. But that's not interesting for social media. We're not getting that published and posted, and we're not going to see that. So don't jump to the conclusion that the whole world hates us.
That goes for both sides, by the way. I have my own reservations from my own experiences with the influencers and activists on our side.
Yeah.
A lot of people in our camp have, what I would like to say, taken advantage for their own personal interests to build their followings, blow their names up, and they're doing God's work most of the time. And you very, very easily can identify those who are doing God's work and those who are trying to build their own brands and their own spaces. So I take reservation with those.
And I think it's really important, right? Recognize that the whole world doesn't hate you, regardless of what side you're on.
Mm-hmm.
We see on social media that there's a lot of support on one side. We don't get to see a lot of it on our side. But it doesn't mean it's not there. It's not real. And to remind ourselves that there are good people who aren't, born being told that they're connected to the land of Israel because they're Jewish, who still support the land, still support the people.
You, Zach Blank, as an individual outside of the state, outside of your connection to Israel, outside of your time in the military, you have your individual goals. What are those goals and dreams that you, as an individual, have?
My number one goal is to build a family. My dream is to be a dad. Right now, I'm an amazing uncle. I love my current status. So that's the real goal. On a professional level, it's to be able to succeed to the point that I can provide that family with everything I want. I work in sales. My goal is to either have my own company or my own startup, whatever it may be, or lead go-to-market and strategy for a company and really bring it, all the way up and scale it. Those are my goals.
And
pack on 10 pounds.
And tell one day. So, hopefully not this way, but this way.
Good on that.
You have Hawks. I know you like sports.
I do.
Tell me about your favorite basketball team, your favorite sports team. Who are they?
Yep. I'm a diehard Sixers fan. Been a fan since Allen Iverson in the early 2000s. When I discovered him playing 2K3, and he's been the reason I've been a fan ever since. I had the privilege of working for the team and interning for them in the summer of 2017, and now they're half my wardrobe of apparel and gear and everything else I have.
Who's your favorite player? Choose one.
On the current roster?
Current roster, 2023-2024 season.
I'll always support Joel, and Joel's always the guy. I love him to death. Next year, the answer might change. We'll see what the roster looks like.
Maybe we could get into a playoff game if they make it to the playoffs.
We'll make it to the finals.